Alright, hey review family, keep it tight. My name is Grimoires, the review guy reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video. And in this one, what I'm going to be doing is my catch-up series, albums I liked, but I am lumping in January and February to give you a highlight of some of my favorite records for the first few months of the year. And I would love to hear what your guys's are. I thought that it would be better to sort of lump them together and give more of a consensus as opposed to just a bit at a time, and hopefully give you guys some recommendations, give you an idea of what some of my favorite records this year so far have been and what has grown on me and what hasn't. In the description, all of my reviews for these records will be listed in case you are curious, because I won't be able to do as much justice to these records in these little excerpts as I can in their fully fledged in-depth reviews, so I highly suggest that if one record interests you and you want to hear more of my thoughts on it, definitely go check those videos out. Kicking off the list with one of my favorite records of the year thus far, Gatecreeper's An Unexpected Reality. This is unexpected in numerous ways. The fact that it just sort of popped out of nowhere and surprised everyone, and number two, the fact it was so good. It was sort of their take on death metal infused with grindcore. These tracks are quick, they are fast, and the last track is this funeral doom metal epic. It really does have a lot to it musically, and I love what Gatecreeper has been doing recently, considering I've never been the biggest fan of them. I've always thought their breed of just buffed up death metal has been sort of overplayed in the genre recently, and I always thought that they were sort of cookie cutter comparatively speaking with what a lot of people give them credit for, but I think Unexpected Reality is a wonderful record in their discography, by far my favorite thing that they have ever done, and I hope to hear more of this experimentation with grindcore in the future. I really have been digging the Four Giants record, There. I would say that it has grown on me since its release. This is a very beautiful, atmospheric, progressive metal and progressive rock album that is infused with djent and some post-metal and post-rock elements. It's instrumental-led, and I definitely suggest it if you want some nice background music or just some really smart songwriting, because even though it's intended to sort of be in the back, it really does stand on its own 2 feet, and fans of, say, Chon or Animals as Leaders are going to get a lot out of this, because if you like that sort of drifting, melancholic, progressive instrumentation, this is going to be right up your alley. I really love the remastered version of Guardians by Saor, the one-man black metal project that nearly took home my album of the year in 2019, and this is no exception. I'm loving these remasterings, and this just sounds amazing. It sounds crisp. If you want to hear atmospheric folk metal mixed with black metal, but done in a way that doesn't seem over the top, that doesn't seem corny, I think that Saor is one of the best to do it that I've ever heard, and as an avid follower of folk music, I really appreciate just how good this record sounds and how good Saor's entire discography sounds. While this isn't brand spanking new material, the way it's packaged and the way it sounds brand new really does make it feel like it is brand new. Next up, Human Serpent with Heirlooms Eternal. Holy shit, am I happy that a Human Serpent record sounds this damn good. They have been building up for so long, and I've been so excited for Human Serpent material ever since they've just been consistently dropping release after release after release, whether it be a compilation or whether it be a studio length or an EP or a demo. It just sounds amazing. This record has such an inclusive black metal sound, a dungeon wail type of sound. It is amazing. It's just dingy. It's dimly lit. It sounds fantastic if what you like out of black metal is when it's at its most brittle, when it's at its most horrific, when it's at its most, I would say, scary. And Human Serpent has shown that it's not just catching lightning in a bottle, it's genuine. They have some fantastic songwriting going behind them, and I think that shows in this record more than ever before. I think it has some of their most mature songwriting and some of their most clever riff writing, some of their most clever in terms of technicality. While they are very straightforward and blunt and their production is middle of the road, here it is a lot more buffed up, it is a lot more crisp, and it does sound great. Ashpyx with Necroceros. I love this death doom hybrid mix, and it's a genre that can be very hit or miss with bands that sort of let one influence or one style heavily dictate what direction they go in entirely. I don't think that's the case here. I think it really does sound like they have the death metal, they have the doom metal, and it meets somewhere in the middle with these lower, sludgier sections and these faster paced sections, and the vocals are very dynamic. This record has a great range to it, and while it is a bit longer than I might like, I do really appreciate what the band was able to put forward here. Next up, The Ruins of Beverast with the full Grimoires. This is my favorite record on this list thus far. I love this thing. It's not going to be for everyone. It definitely is not going to be for everyone, and I wouldn't even go so far as to say that it is an acquired taste. The thing about Ruins of Beverast is you either really enjoy them or you really don't. That's literally all it comes down to. They're avant-garde, they're experimental, they're off the beaten path, and they're not usually what you are used to, and I think that showcases itself here more than ever before. This record knows how to pace itself, and if you don't like a record that takes its time, I don't think that this is going to be something you get a lot out of, because it's very long-winded. Some might even say pretentious, some might say over the top, but I think it's just right. It is one of the best records I've heard this year so far, hands down, and just continues to prove why Ruins of Beverast is one of the coolest experimental extreme bands out there. Nothing Nowhere with Trauma Factory. While a lot of the tracks here can range from some of his weakest to some of his strongest, I think that the highlights outweigh the bad sections, and I can sort of overlook it because I think it's an important record for Joe, sort of fleshing out his style, returning back to his roots, and making a more simplistic and minimalistic record. And going through and watching the interviews, watching his words on this record, it really is interesting to see how he combined his old and his new. Even though he says he's returning to his roots, I think there's a lot of ideas here that are, comparatively speaking, different than what would have been on, say, Reaper or Ruiner, or even his early material, but there is enough there to really tie to his initial material, and I think it's interesting to see him interject all of these new ideas and new features, and I think it's pretty good, even though there are some weak moments. Spire with Temple of Khronos. Probably my second favorite record on this list, sort of like Ruins of Beverast, just an experimental record, but I would go so far as to say even more inaccessible. This thing is freakish, this thing's devilish, this thing is weird. It goes so many different directions, it is scatterbrained. The progressions happen so rapidly, but they don't in terms of speed, they just do in terms of thematic elements, and this record just feels like you are in a fever dream. You are in a nightmare. This is the musical equivalent of sleep paralysis, only instead of just being surrounded by one demon, it's 15 around you chanting at you. This record makes you feel uneasy, it makes you feel uncomfortable, it makes your skin crawl, and I really do love that effect. Call me a sadist. I know this slipped under a lot of people's radar, so if it did, go check this out. Highly, highly recommend it. Brand of Sacrifice with Lifeblood. I love Brand of Sacrifice, and I've thought that they've had a bigger project in them ever since I started getting into them, but I felt like we never got the full extent of their capabilities because their track listings were short. They weren't really pushing for their elements and pushing their themes hard enough, sort of pushing that envelope and pushing those boundaries. But I think in comparison to their other material, Lifeblood does feel like Brand of Sacrifice is a fully realized band at this point, really playing to their strengths with, it's just fun. The chemistry is fun. Is it over the top and kind of cringy? Absolutely. It is so over the top. It is so heavy. It's so brutal, but it is fun. It's fireworks. It's not in the gratuitous sense, and it doesn't get overplayed. It doesn't become overbearing. It genuinely just is a fun record that poses a lot of really thrilling riffs and breakdowns and vocal techniques. It's just fun. And I compare this a lot for fans of Immortal by Lorna Shore, if that's the type of deathcore record that you enjoy. And that'll wrap up my favorite records of the past few months, but I want to know what your guys's are. Definitely leave them in the comments below. I can't wait to hear what you've been enjoying the most. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is, my name is James Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.